talking to Drs. Jeffries and Thompson. And Dr. Jeffries, before we end the show today, let's give the two of you an opportunity to, you and Dr. Thompson, the opportunity to take the information that we've talked about the African civilization and the impact that it has had and the influence that it has had. How do you get this information down to a lower level? Because it's fine and that the two of you as researchers, college professors, dealing with college students know this information. That's fine, but what about at a lower level, perhaps at the high school level or at even below that? How can this information be disseminated to a wider audience?
I think that's one of the great challenges that we face. How to get this enormous explosion of information about African peoples that reverses this whole negative information flow that was institutionalized for so many years. How do we get this information down into our families and into our institutions and organizations where it will have an impact? And that's one of the themes of our conference this weekend, to be able to put it in the hands of the youngest of our peoples who are being educated. Why? Because knowledge is power, and that means knowledge of African peoples is empowerment for African peoples. So if our youngsters are constantly bombarded with the negative images, the Tarzan images, the Sambo images, then that negative projection falls on them. But if they know that African peoples were the founders of the human family, that they raised the pyramids and temples of the Nile to their consciousness of the spirituality and their God consciousness, that they invented mathematics and writing and philosophy, when this knowledge is put in the hands of our young people, it will give them greater strength and self-motivation. I was at an affair in the Black History Month where they had a school in which the preschool through grade 8 put on a program on history. They presented the black inventors that invented so many of the things that are part of modern society, the light bulbs, the Elijah McCoy and his work. And the other classes presented, for example, the Massachusetts 54, the fight of black people in the Civil War for their own freedom, etc. So that I saw that this can be done if properly taught, properly trained instructors are available. It can be taught to our people at every grade level. I saw the preschool, I saw the first, second, third grade, the 8th grade actually implement a curriculum of this enormous truth of African world studies.
Dr. Thompson, coming from Chicago and certainly with a large African-American community there, what are you doing in that great city to sort of disseminate this information throughout?
Well, on 2 occasions we actually worked with Chicago Public Schools in creating a curriculum guide for the schools. And that was done through the public school system. In addition to that, with the group I'm working with in Chicago at the Center for Inner City Studies, the Kemetic Institute, we actually wrote a curriculum guide for the public. So actually we're working with community organizations as well, with the churches, but I think most importantly, you will have to get to the administrators. You must deal with the faculty and the administrators of these school systems, or of the church school systems and what have you, and teach about Africa. So we have a program called Teaching About Africa, which we've had since 1986. And across the country, in many cities, we have these programs. But the thing about being a member of the Association for the Study of Classical African Civilization, we have these regions. So therefore, wherever you go, the West, the East, the Midwest, or the South, we have communication with each other, and we're working with schools and actually bringing forth all of this information about Africa. The other thing is we cannot leave out the large, growing African communities coming from Nigeria, Ghana, Ethiopia, Eritrea, and all those places, South Africa, Zimbabwe, in Chicago, in Illinois, in Michigan, in New York, and what have you.
Here in
so now linking up with these organizations, these groups, I would consider to be most important.
Very good. And of course, I think that in order to do this, Dr. Jeffries, this requires quite a bit of resources from organizations like the organization that you have. And what are you doing, and how do you reach out in order to get people to support what you're doing financially?
Well, fortunately, we are self-funding. And the contributions made to our organization, scholars come from around the country to participate in our various conferences. And we move the conferences around the country. They pay their own expenses. And the purchase of books and other materials, tapes, helps to create the funds of money necessary for us to do the things that we have to do. And so I think it's important for us to understand that it doesn't take